How are we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network as we bring you your Season 4 2019 Week 9 around the NCAA recap. Your Pitt Panthers coming off of really a quarterback duel as Kenny Pickett and Bryce Perkins went head-to-head, 300-plus yards of offense for both quarterbacks, and the Panthers ended up coming out on top. An incredible game. We really just outlasted them, to be honest. And the big story, or the biggest way we were able to do that, number one, was we kept the ball out of their hands. They had 380 yards of offense, but if you look, they only ran 50 plays or 48 plays, something of that nature. So they were putting yards up, all kinds of plays. We ran, I think, 37 passes and like 40-some runs, and we ended up having, you know, a good amount of offense, 475 yards, but we had it on basically double the number of plays, and the way that we did that was by keeping the ball away from Virginia. They had 3 minutes and change of possession in the second half. Basically, we would just nickel and dime them. We were getting 10 yards on 3 plays and moving the ball at a very just conservative rate in order to keep the ball away from them. Perkins was so dangerous, and so our job was to keep the ball away from him. Kenny Pickett, though, not enough can be said about his performance. He had 38 yards on the ground. He passed for 320 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Incredible day. Jay Keys and Maurice French combined for 13 catches and 150 yards. Paul Lease had 105 yards. Jay Keys, though, 7 receptions. He had a few rushing attempts as well, got a couple yards there. It was just a really all-around great game by our real big playmakers. That Paul Lease play where he ran for, you know, the 81-yard catch and run touchdown was a huge turning point in the game. And then, of course, the touchdown that the ball came out and they still ruled it a touchdown was incredible as well. So really big performance by us. The defense was okay. 2 sacks. We did have 1 interception, Jazzy Stalker, very early in the game. What really wasn't the defense's best performance. Like I said, we limited the damage by keeping the ball away from Virginia eventually when we realized that with Perkins running the ball, we just weren't going to be able to stop them, really. And so that was the biggest key, was eventually we just said, look, we're going to keep the ball. We're going to grind them down. Sibley had a really tough day. I think he ended up finishing still with 60-some yards on the ground, or 50 or 60 yards on the ground. So he had an okay day. CJ London really struggled, but Pickett, like I said, added some yards. We had a couple of nice sweeps that went pretty well, and we just did our best to kind of dink and dunk Virginia to keep them off the field, save our defense, so that then when we needed them to make some big stops in the third and fourth quarters, they were able to do it because they were fresh and they were ready to go. But a great game from Virginia. Perkins, like I said, 111 rushing yards, 200 passing yards. He had, 3 total touchdowns, I think, or all 4 touchdowns. I think he might have thrown for – no, he threw for 1, ran for 2, and then they had the fumble recovery touchdowns. That was unfortunate. That was probably Kenny's one bad decision that he made really all game, that pitch to Jay Keys. So the fumble goes down for Keys, unfortunately, but it was the pitch that really kind of put him in a bad spot. He took a big hit and unfortunately went the other way. But overall, a great performance by the Panthers as a whole. It was a great team performance, really just did enough to win the game, and that's really all you can ask for. And if they can do that and string those victories together a couple of more times, they'll be looking to repeat as ACC Coastal Division champions and get back to the ACC championship game. But a great game nonetheless. One unsung hero I have to point out, Eric Fox was fantastic punting the football. Again, he put a couple out where they needed to, and really the one that he dropped in right at the 8 should have been down there, but we let it bounce into the end zone because we just missed the ball. So great game from him. Big win for Pitt, of course, over Virginia. In the ACC, Miami did beat Tennessee in a nice non-conference victory for the Hurricanes. Syracuse knocked off BYU to get another win. I think their 3rd win of the season. The big game around the ACC, though, North Carolina beat Georgia Tech. Florida State beat Louisville, but NC State knocks off Clemson. So the Tigers lose, and really that puts NC State in the driver's seat now for the ACC Atlantic Division title. Wake Forest won as well, so they're going to be playing Clemson here coming up. So if they can knock off Clemson as well, they'll have a chance to potentially get in for that ACC Atlantic Division title as well. It'll make things very, very interesting. But around the top 25, Penn State knocked off Rutgers. Indiana upsetting Michigan State, so that's really going to hurt the Spartans' chances of doing anything in the Big Ten this year. Ohio State outlasted Maryland. Maryland only 1 win. win, but they give Ohio State a nice game. Cincinnati stays with just one loss with their victory over UConn. Houston beats Temple to stay unbeaten. Arkansas State wins. Arkansas gets back to winning ways. They're 8-1 now, so still a really good season for them as they beat Ole Miss. UCLA's unbeaten still. Stanford knocks off Oregon. Oregon can still win their division in the Pac-12 because Stanford has 2 losses. Oregon only has 1 Pac-12 loss still, so if they keep it up, they could potentially still win their division in the Pac-12. North Carolina being Georgia Tech, like we mentioned, big game for North Carolina to stay in the ACC division hunt. Notre Dame knocked off Purdue. Virginia Tech with an easy win over Duke. LSU just outlasted Clemson 37-34. First tight game for LSU all season. Florida knocks off Georgia. Georgia had just 1 loss at the time. Now they have 2 after Florida beats them 34-22 in the world's biggest cocktail party. UAB stays unbeaten. They beat UTSA 38-35 in a tight battle. Oklahoma beats Baylor. Kansas State knocks Oklahoma State from the ranks of the unbeaten, so they do get their first loss of the season. That's going to hurt them as they look to try and make any kind of college football playoff run. Players of the week from this week, Chappelle Russell with an incredible 19 tackle performance, 6 for a loss, 2 sacks, forced 2 fumbles, and had a pick, and yet still lost playing for Temple. And then Demetrius Davis, one of the best games we've seen out of a receiver this year, 17 catches, 318 yards, and 5 touchdowns for UAB in their victory, which is incredible. Taquan Marshall, huge game despite losing to UNC, almost 400 yards and 4 total touchdowns, and Shamar Kirby-Lane, 2 picks for Florida State in their victory over Louisville. And it's a real shame Louisville keeps losing because it's making things look worse and worse for us for losing to them. I think we're their only ACC win as it stands right now. Joe Burrow still top of the Heisman race after their victory over A&M. Felipe Franks, though, jumps up to 2 after their big victory. Tommy Stevens, Penn State's quarterback, to 3. Ty Story right back into the Heisman race after a 4-touchdown performance in the win over Ole Miss. And B.J. Emmons for Alabama didn't play this week, and he drops all the way down to 5th from, I think he was second or third, I want to say, in the Heisman race. He drops down, but it still looks like Burrow's to lose if LSU can keep winning. And what's going to be the real question mark for them is Alabama and LSU, number 1 and 2 in the country right now. They're playing each other this week. Not very often do you get 1 versus 2 in the middle of the season. We will have it this week, so that should be very, very interesting. Another big game for an unbeaten school. Auburn, number 5 in the country, is going to play number 14 Arkansas. So things are really going to potentially shake up this week depending on how the results can fare for a few of those top 5 teams. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Oklahoma State does drop back to number 12 with their loss. They're no longer unbeaten. NC State jumps up to 13 with their big win over Clemson, who falls back to 16. We use as an advantage to jump ahead of Clemson. We're currently number 15 in the country. Georgia falls back to 19 after losing to Florida, who goes up to 17. So the ranking system's actually been working out pretty well this year. Basically, if you lose to a team, they're going to jump you and they're going to be ahead of you in the rankings. Michigan State falls out of the rankings with their loss to Indiana. Pretty bad loss there, so they're out of the rankings entirely. BCS rankings, as we take a look at them here after Week 9. After Week 10, we will have an episode where we look at the BCS rankings, and then where we do the first college football playoff rankings will be released, so they may differ from the BCS rankings a little bit. Remember, that's the first rankings. Things will really change as the season heats up here, but the top 4 as it stands right now, it has 3 SEC teams in it. There's only 2 conferences making up the top 5 teams, so I think pretty clearly this top 4, top 5 that we're seeing right now, that's not how things are going to shake out, because Alabama, LSU, Auburn, they all have to play each other still. Ohio State, Penn State, they have to play each other still. So Texas, Oklahoma, Texas beat Oklahoma, but things will shake up as we move on through the season. I mean, Houston and UAB as undefeateds, if they can stay unbeaten, if these other teams in the Power 5 conferences beat up on each other and each have 1 or 2 losses, those unbeatens may be able to sneak in. Who knows? It'll be very interesting to see. I'm going to start throwing in the conference standings now since we're a little bit further along in conference play, just so you can see how things are moving along week to week. We're still top of the Coastal Division with North Carolina, top of the table between the two of us. We do have to play each other in a couple weeks, so that should change the Coastal Division picture, but we both still have a good number of conference games still to play. So, of course, I mean, we could go from 3-1 to 3-5 easily, you know what I mean? So it's by no means an assured opportunity that we're going to be repeating as Coastal Division champions. Like I said, in the Atlantic Division, NC State has the inside track right now. Clemson and Wake are going to play this week, though. So if Wake beats Clemson somehow, I'd expect Clemson to win. But if Wake does somehow beat Clemson, they'll be 4-1. NC State will be 4-1, and the two of them will play each other later in the season, and that could be to decide the ACC Atlantic Division title. But basically, it's going to be between those three schools, because the only other team with less than 3 losses in the Atlantic is Syracuse, and I don't think anybody expects Syracuse to go unbeaten the rest of the way. They'll actually have to play at Louisville this week in the ACC. Virginia's going to play Duke. NC State and Utah play each other in kind of a weird non-conference game. BYU plays another ACC team. They just lost to Syracuse last week. Now they got Florida State. And then, like I mentioned, Wake's going to play Clemson. But big games around the country right now. Arkansas, seeing if they can keep up their fantastic run, taking on unbeaten Auburn, who has the number 2 rush offense in the country. I think they run an option right now with who's coaching them. I want to say they have Navy's coach maybe or something like that. But they're running an option, so that's why they rush so well. Wake taking on Clemson. Gigantic ACC game. That should be very, very interesting to see if Wake's huge offense can really, really come to play. And then Bama versus LSU. Biggest game in the country. Biggest game all season, probably, until we get to conference championship week. 2 unbeatens going at it. Jalen Hurts, the quarterback of Alabama. Joe Burrow, the quarterback of LSU. LSU, number 1 ranked pass offense in the country. Alabama, great offense as well. It's going to be a fantastic, fantastic game. I'm really looking forward to it. For us, though, we do have some great stuff to finish up the episode on, in that we get another recruit, a big signing. Billy Jacobs, you'll remember I mentioned in the video, was visiting, 4-star cornerback out of West Virginia. He has committed to us. Unfortunately, David McKinney, 4-star receiver from New Jersey, has decided to commit to our rivals at Penn State. We were never really in for him. You can see how many points behind we are. We did show some initial interest, since we do need receivers for sure, but it ended up never really being a sure thing for us. He did come out pretty well. Not a great speed player. 80 speed is pretty brutal, but he's got good catching already, good spectacular catch, good route running, so he'll probably turn out to be a pretty solid player for Penn State, that we'll never play him unless we both make the playoff or something, since we're not playing Penn State anymore. Billy Jacobs, though, look at this signing. 93 speed, 92 acceleration, 91 agility. Guy's an incredible runner. 85 play recognition, 85 man coverage, 84 zone coverage. This guy is going to be the best cornerback in college football in a couple of years. He is going to come in, and with Scott Whaley, with Kaiser Artis-Scott, those are probably our top 3 corners right there. Kaiser Artis-Scott will be coming back, and then you'll have Scott Whaley, 78 overall, as you saw when we scouted him. Billy Jacobs, 79 overall when we scouted him. They're going to be incredible. I think they're going to be incredible players. It's going to make things interesting with some of the other guys we recruited. I wanted Billy really badly, just because he's a true cornerback, and Bill Butler maybe might be a receiver now. I mean, with the players we've brought in, I think Whaley, because his man coverage is so good, is definitely going to be a corner. Butler might be a receiver. We have those needs, so we'll see how the depth chart kind of shakes out. But if you take a look here at what we need, we have 9 signings currently in, 6 on defense, 3 on offense. We have 3 open scholarships that we can fill right now, because I have 12 seniors, which means, and I have a full roster, which means I can fill 12 scholarships for players that are leaving this year, because I don't cut anybody, because otherwise you can just sign 20 guys and cut the 8 really bad ones. You know what I mean? So I prefer to sign it evenly, and it makes it a lot harder to pick and choose who you want to bring in. What that means is we only have 3 spots left. Jordan Pugh, Mike Lee, Adam Vaughn. Those are the guys we're going to go after, and I think that'll suit us very well. They've been the 3 guys that we have that we offered scholarships to. We offered one to Kajai Goodwin too, but we're not going to get him. He's way too good for us. But Jordan Pugh, we're currently in a battle with Penn State. We do have a visit with him the week before Penn State. I don't think we're going to get a commit from him that week, but I think what it'll do is it'll allow us to prolong the battle into the offseason, because we're going to have so few targets. It's going to make it very easy for us to bring him in. Same thing with Mike Lee here. We just had a visit with him. It puts us way ahead of Penn State right now, but they're going to have a visit with him later in the season. I think that's going to keep the battle open until the offseason, where we're going to then have to win it. The nice thing is, I think Adam Vaughn, we have a week 12 visit with him. I think that means we're going to be able to sign him that week, hopefully, because we have such a big lead on Maryland already. Hopefully that means we can get him before the end of the season, because then we'll only have 2 scholarships we need to fill in the offseason, and we can basically just put all of our points into Jordan Pugh and Mike Lee, and hopefully we'll be able to bring them in as well. So, as always, guys, let me know what you think of the signings. I think Billy Jacobs is going to be incredible. Let me know how you think he's going to fit into the team. Obviously, we need cornerbacks. Who's going to win the Alabama-LSU game? That is a huge one. Let me know your final score projections in the comments. Who's going to be the player of the game? Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, B.J. Emmons, somebody else? You don't really know a lot of the guys on the team probably, but let me know. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Hail to Pitt. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.